March 1st, 1954, 6:45 a.m. local time. On Bikini Atoll, a flash brighter than 1,000 suns erupts from the reef. The mushroom cloud climbs to 40 kilometers, spreading debris into the stratosphere. The yield is 15 megatons, 3 times the expected maximum. Shockwaves circle the Earth twice. On a Japanese fishing trawler, the Lucky Dragon No. 5, 160 kilometers away, fishermen watch in awe. Within hours, they will feel the burn of invisible poison. This is Castle Bravo, the worst nuclear test in American history. A catastrophic failure of science and hubris that contaminated an ocean and betrayed the trust of the world. The test was part of Operation Castle, a series of thermonuclear experiments designed to prove a new compact design. The device, codenamed Shrimp, was built to test a lithium-7 deuteride fuel, a stable compound that should have produced a predictable reaction. Scientists, led by physicist Edward Teller, believed the yield would be around 6 megatons. The test site was Bikini Atoll, a remote Pacific island whose inhabitants had been relocated years earlier for atomic tests. The crew of the Lucky Dragon No. 5, a tuna boat from Japan, was unaware of the danger. They were fishing in waters considered safe. Months before the test, calculations suggested that lithium-7 might not behave as predicted. In theory, it could fuse more energetically than expected, producing tritium and boosting the yield. But the scientists dismissed these concerns. The design was considered too advanced to fail. No one ran full-scale simulations. The safety margins were ignored. The test was rushed to beat a Soviet moratorium deadline. The weather forecast was also ignored. Winds that could carry fallout toward inhabited islands were noted but not acted upon. The stage was set for a disaster that was foreseeable. The decision to proceed with Castle Bravo came from the highest levels. President Eisenhower had approved a series of tests to demonstrate American nuclear superiority. The military wanted a deliverable hydrogen bomb. The scientists, confident in their theories, assured safety. On the morning of March 1st, the countdown began. At T-0, the Shrimp device detonated. Within microseconds, the lithium-7 reacted far more efficiently than predicted, producing an enormous burst of neutrons. The yield skyrocketed. The bomb was supposed to be a test. It became an uncontrolled monster. The fireball consumed the island of Namu, vaporizing sand and coral into radioactive glass. The mushroom cloud rose at 300 meters per second, reaching 40 kilometers in 10 minutes. Fallout began falling immediately. Fine, white, calcium-rich ash from vaporized coral laced with fission products. The ash was radioactive. At ground zero, radiation levels exceeded 10,000 roentgens per hour, enough to kill a person in minutes. The Lucky Dragon, 160 kilometers away, was dusted with this ash. Within hours, the fishermen developed nausea, burns, and hair loss. They had no idea they were being poisoned. The U.S. military knew immediately that the test had gone wrong. But instead of warning nearby populations, they maintained radio silence. The fishermen of the Lucky Dragon were not evacuated. The Marshall Islanders on Rongelap and Utirik atolls were not told to stay indoors. The military later sent a ship to collect the fishermen, but only after a week of exposure. They confiscated the contaminated tuna and burned the boat. No medical treatment was given. The cover-up had begun. The first responders, sailors and Marines, were ordered to clean up contaminated equipment without protective gear. The full horror became clear when the Lucky Dragon returned to Japan. The fishermen were hospitalized with acute radiation syndrome. One died months later. The contaminated tuna entered the market, triggering a nationwide panic. Japan, the only country to suffer atomic bombing, was outraged. The U.S. government initially denied any danger, claiming the ash was harmless. But Geiger counters told a different story. The fallout had spread across the Pacific, reaching as far as India and Europe. The world learned that a hydrogen bomb test had gone catastrophic. International alarm grew. The U.S. was forced to admit the truth. The human cost was staggering. 64 Marshall Islanders from Rongelap and Utirik were exposed to high levels of radiation. They suffered burns, vomiting, and long-term cancers. The Lucky Dragon crew received doses estimated at 300 rads, lethal for some. The U.S. conducted medical experiments on the islanders, studying them as guinea pigs without informed consent. The fallout contaminated the entire Pacific food chain. For decades, the Marshall Islands would see elevated rates of thyroid cancer, leukemia, and birth defects. The fishermen, the islanders, the cleanup crews, all were victims of a test that was never supposed to happen. The cover-up lasted decades. The U.S. government classified the true yield of Castle Bravo for years. The fishermen were paid a small settlement, $2 million, but only after Japan protested. The Marshall Islanders received compensation much later, but it was inadequate. The scientists who designed the bomb knew about the lithium-7 risk, but downplayed it. Edward Teller, the father of the H-bomb, defended the test. No one was punished. The Atomic Energy Commission continued testing in the Pacific, but Castle Bravo forced a re-evaluation of fallout dangers. It led indirectly to the 1963 Partial Test Ban Treaty, banning atmospheric tests. Castle Bravo remains the largest nuclear test ever conducted by the United States. Its legacy is one of hubris, secrecy, and human suffering. The Marshall Islands still bear the scars. Some islands remain uninhabitable. The fisherman's story was turned into a film, but the real tragedy is the long-term health effects that continue to this day. The test changed how the world viewed nuclear weapons, revealing that no bomb is clean or safe. It is a reminder that when science is driven by politics and haste, the consequences can be catastrophic. Subscribe to Nuclear Disasters for more stories of atomic tragedy and cover-up.